Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Schwartz, and I am the Community Programs Coordinator at National Queer Theater. And today I'm chatting with Gaven, who I will let introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Gaven, rhymes with Raven, Gaven Trinidad, and he, him, his. And I work a lot with National Queer Theater as a director, playwright, and I am in my full-time job, in my day job, I am the community engagement associate at New York Theater Workshop.
Cool. So Gaven and I are just going to be chatting today about the state of community engagement in the theater and the arts. How do we engage our communities when so much of that work traditionally happens in groups and as a collective? And so I guess we'll just dive right in. So Gaven, I guess the first question I have for you is, how are the different communities in your life, theater and elsewhere, responding to the current moment?
I think when the pandemic, when WHO named this as a pandemic and immediately things started to change, I think a lot of my colleagues in different fields were trying to, as much as they can, find a way to survive and help other people survive. And for those who have the privilege to work at home and be at home in the safety um, and survive in a way day to day, um, you know, a lot of my family are first responders. They're in the medical field, and so that's been um, a very interesting and challenging time for my family. In that sense, I know many of our artists who are out of work have graciously used their time and artistry to create masks for others in this time where supplies are desperately needed by the medical field, but also our local community and our elderly, some of the most vulnerable. And I think also in this time when this pandemic has been ravaging and also been so revealing of the just the structural inequalities in our capitalist country, um, just how divided we are in our understanding of equity, especially now with like just the rise of racism towards Asian
Mm-hmm.
and Asian American bodies. And so I know many of us who are POC, API, in the theater community have started movements, and I applaud them and continue that fight. Yeah.
Cool. So that sort of answers a three-parter question that I had for later, but I guess I'll ask it now. So, yeah, how do you think the
I was trying
pandemic
to think
specifically?
really hard earlier. I was like, this is really complicated.
It is very complicated. And I'm like, I'm not going to have the answers. You're not going to have the answers,
Yeah.
but to everything. But it's all good stuff. So, yeah, I guess another question that I have is, how do you think this pandemic specifically affects? We talked about the Asian American community, but also the queer community, POCs as a whole, the immigrant communities here in New York.
I identify as a queer brown first gen. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm technically 1.5 because I live both back
Right.
back in the U.S. and in Asia, um,
Yeah.
growing up, and and it's it's been distressing. I think about my friends who are HIV positive, think about how they're getting their medication. Um, I think about also I was a public school teacher and I specialize closely with a lot of first gen students, newly arrived students, and so I am thinking a lot about them and their families and how they are, and undocumented folk, how they are getting help if they can get help, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are forced to work. We call them essential workers, but we don't give them the time of day to help them realize and affirm their humanity. Um, yeah. And so that's been, if also, I will say this to anyone watching and listening, uh, it's very interesting. The questions, like I was given the questions previously, but I think what's so difficult, especially in a time of great urgency and emergency, it's still challenging. As Bria said, like none of us have answers that can solve things or fully clarifies the situation. And so if you hear me struggling, I'm wrestling with my own thoughts and my own feelings. So
For
just
sure.
wanted to give that. Thank you for your
No,
understanding.
thank you for framing that too, because I think in all of these Zoom meetings and all of these planning sessions we've all been in, we don't always have the answers. And Adam, our artistic director, said it to me yesterday. He was like, if you had the answers, we would be set.
Yeah.
So I guess shifting a little bit. So if anything, what role do you think that theaters and arts organizations have in this current moment and serving these communities? What role do we have in that?
hmm I think I'm going to answer this if in multiple parts. I think one, I will preface, I feel artists should not feel so beholden or pressured to create at this time. I think there is an importance of acknowledging that artists are human beings too, and there's a point of grieving and loss. And I would, and self-care is so necessary. As one RuPaul, as RuPaul would say, how can you love someone else if you can't love yourself? And I think that extends in love very generously in many different forms. And and so I will just say before anyone says create, 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 to first take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think another part, if you are in a place of privilege, of opportunity to do and create work, and you feel as an artist, I believe artists are healers of a community, do it. If it makes you live and it helps other people live, do it.
Yeah.
Um, I think another part, I think that which is very important, I believe theater makers are also the historians of a community. I think part of our job right now is to also make sure that the history is recorded. Uh, as many, I was in academia, so as many of those in academia know, um, history is written and is created by um, by a larger voice. And so, what does it mean for all of us to write down and document this time? And because the one of the biggest viruses that America has is amnesia. So um, the how we easily forget recent history, trauma, and turmoil. And I hope this is something that we don't forget.
Yeah.
Um, and so please, especially if you have children, tell give them a pen and pencil, write down in their journal, draw it out. I think everyone has, and I think theater makers, they affirm that everyone has a voice and should continue sharing the skills necessary. Um, I think a fourth. What is a fourth? So three. I know I'm breaking the rule of three, but I think a fourth would be great. Yeah, survive. We are in a to. I think this is mostly for institutions. Um, it's a double whammy. We live in a country where arts organizations do not get a lot of federal funding or none at all. And unlike many other countries. And so because we live in a capitalist society without the money, we devalue the arts. And
Mm-hmm.
especially in this pandemic where we're all needing to have money to survive, um, I don't want to pressure arts institutions to produce something in which they feel they need to keep face. I think at the end of the day, when we go through this, I would be at a loss, and I would be going through another grieving process, knowing arts organizations did not survive through this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, uh, because I think right now in the worst times, people are now searching for the arts to fulfill their soul, to heal them, to remind them that they too can make believe and be in tune with their own emotions.
Mhm.
Um, I just hope people remember that afterwards as well.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, there's this question of sort of like what we do in the moment versus later. And so, I guess the question for you that I have is when community engagement usually means group gatherings at theaters or
Yeah.
at different art spaces. What does engagement mean for a community when we can't gather?
hmm it's been interesting. Along the lines, I could speak for New York Theater Workshop. As some of you may know, we're trying to find ways in which we can connect with a larger audience and share our artists and their ideas, um, and making it available, and it's all for free. And for us, I think right now so meaningful to hear people who want to keep creating and want to keep learning, to know that all of these artists too are also, you know, trying to discover and figure out
Yeah.
how to work and survive and create community through this.
Mhm.
It's difficult. I think one of the things I love about theater, and if anyone has seen any of the shows or the way I direct, is very much about um, dispelling hierarchies and queer community building in that, and queer collaboration. That's another interview to talk about. Um, but it is something that we cannot forget, that yes, we can do Zoom readings, we can do these online events. They are not the same thing.
Mhm.
They cannot replace each other. It doesn't mean that we cannot do it or they're at different levels. They're just different languages.
Mhm.
One is digital and the other is not. And and I guess going back to the question, what does it mean for community engagement? We're learning a language, a
Yeah.
digital language in which we know we can connect, but also very much, acknowledge the limitations of it.
Yeah.
Um, but it shouldn't stop us from getting together, having brunches, having conversations such as these. And so one of the pilot programs that I was doing last week for the workshop, we were trying to do an emerging artist corner, um, like a group of 20 or so. And the idea is that it's a lunchtime thing, so people can bring in their lunch. We discuss as artists different topics. Last week was what's the role of an artist during the time of COVID.
Mhm.
And some of the things I said were things that we discussed. Uh, it is creating spaces for people in which they can wrestle with the now, plan for the future, and learn from the past. And I know that sounds vague, but that's what's hitting me right now. There's only so much that we can do.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Mhm.
But I think along with community, I think I'm seeing people, you know, doing these sewing parties to create masks. I think
Mhm.
that's magnificent. If that's what moves you, do it. I think we're in a world in which we must take leaps in discovering what that means. Personally, for my self-care, I've been doing Netflix parties with
Yeah.
my friends, and we're all throughout the U.S. But knowing that we're there, and the acknowledgement that we
Yeah.
are responding to something together will suffice for now. But
Yeah.
I am so hungry to be in a room with people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of leads me into another question, which is, do you think that COVID-19 and the ways we've had to adapt will shift the way theaters engage communities in the future?
I believe so. I believe in the more recent in the I mean in the more recent future. That's silly. I was like going through my head. I was like, I have a master's degree. No. um, I in the near future, I believe, or in the more immediate future, there we go. We will have to take precautions in which knowing the science, we will have different waves coming in once we know what this is and we have a vaccine. And I think what's so difficult is that it is very much creating theater is very communal. You are in a room with the same 30 plus, like 30 people or so for an entire month. And then you add another 50, 100, 600, 1,000 something. And does that mean, do we have spaces between the chairs? Does that mean we have closed, very closed rehearsals, or even a limited time? Or does that mean some of the rehearsals are via Zoom, which is not unheard of? One of my friends from India was restaging a play that he had directed, and they were restaging it in India, but he was redirecting them via like Skype.
Yeah.
And so it's not unheard of. I think it will just be an understanding that it's another tool, but it's not a replacement for the real thing. And maybe we'll find new forms of theater. I'm very much, some of the things I write is very much with technology. And so what are the different ways in which we might discover new theatrical forms at this time? I'm very much into VR.
Yeah.
I saved my money, got myself an Oculus.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I'm a gamer, Gaymer.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where I'm going with this, but I do wonder what are the things that do change immediately, because I don't believe we're all going to 60 people are going to just be thrown into a room and say create. There'll be a staggering of things, and will we go back to what it was before? Yeah, maybe in a different form. Theater people adapt. We adapt.
Yeah.
All people adapt. I will just have precautions that will help us understand what can be and what may be the situation for years to come.
Yeah. So this might be a heavy one, and you could take your time thinking about an answer, but you're somebody that I've looked up to a lot in terms of community engagement and as another Asian person. So if you could offer one piece of advice, if it's to me, that's fine. If it's to the rest of the theater community, if it's to emerging artists, what's one piece of advice that you would give right now to people in our field?
I think I'm going to echo something that I said before, would be take care of yourself. This is a terribly hard time. And whoever's listening and needs to hear this, like, if you can't create now, don't force yourself to. Maybe this is not the time. And for those who do, go ahead. Let your wildest dreams just run off and write, create, dance. Don't let this stop you. But either way, both ways are forms of self-care, of self-sustainability. Because when we move to the next stage in which we can start coming together, that's when we need you the most. We're rebuilding a community and everyone's part of it. If you know other people who need help and you're in that, and you have that privilege to assist, I hope in the bottom of your heart you can do something. Even as the smallest gesture. getting someone groceries, or or
Mhm.
even making masks, cheering on at 7 o'clock for
Mhm.
the essential workers, being kind, and being patient as we're all, you know, waiting and trying to help each other when we
Right.
have to go, to places in New York. Yeah. It's a very, it's very odd to say, to give advice when
Right.
when I'm trying. Basically, this is the same advice I'm trying to give myself. Like when this first started, um, it was very difficult. 2 weeks in, I had to admit to myself I was depressed. And once I acknowledged that and I let myself grieve for the sudden change, just to give backtrack, at New York Theater Workshop, we had two shows going on. We had Endlings by Celine Song and Sanctuary City by Martina Mayok, and we we closed the shows and we had this last minute um, just celebration of their work and the cast's work, and we knew that would be the last time in a long time that we
Mhm.
would all see each other in that way.
Right.
Um, and I think, and I just remember as we were all dancing and, doing the Cupid shuffle, you know, it was the height of, there was so much joy in the room.
Mhm.
And in the excitement of knowing that someone else cares for you and can
Mhm.
reach out and touch your hand, I yearn for that. I crave for that. But it was very helpful when I realized that's why I was so sad.
Yeah.
Um, and I was happy I then took time for myself. Then I started mustering up and doing things. I ran this morning with my dog.
Awesome. That's
We
awesome.
3 miles back. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I did that. But and it's just harder because now I wear a mask too when I run, and so I'm like breathing in.
Breathing. Yeah.
Um, but but mourn, and then find things to make yourself happy as much as you can.
Yeah.
Find things to make other people happy. And that could be in various ways. I know I'm talking in circles, and it's just,
No.
yeah.
I'm actually interested. Yeah, you said Netflix parties with friends, running. Are there any other ways you're finding self-care right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I know I say you don't need to force yourself to create, but I'm in a very interesting position. I started playwriting, and some of my plays are actually getting noted. Like, it's a very odd thing because I'm a first time playwright, and is actually moving me up through different processes and recognition, and so I'm going back to my plays for rewriting, and this has
Mhm.
been in this sense of realization of how I feel and what I do. I think the particular plays I was looking back on is like, aha, it makes more sense.
That's yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's a point of clarity, and it's been fun. I'm also a cartoonist, and
Oh, I didn't
so
know
yeah, I
that.
know you got to learn. And so I've been commissioned by the workshop. So you'll see almost every week or every other week a different cartoon. Um, if you get an email right now if you got an email, I think this morning or last night,
Yeah, this
or the
morning.
workshop,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
that image, the graphic, like the New Yorker S graphic, that's me. So I'm the one who actually illustrates
That's
all of it.
awesome.
And so just
Yeah.
wait till next week. And
Cool.
so that has brought me joy, and
Mhm.
cooking has been great.
Mhm.
Taking care of my parents, I love my parents. um it's not a perfect relationship, but it's a great relationship either way.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Same with my little brother. My heart goes out to him because he's a first year in college, and so I had to
Mm.
go up and, in a very dramatic way, like, get his stuff. It's like, we have to come back down. And I called him on the day of all of the Broadway shows canceling.
Mm-hmm.
And for the past month or so, because a lot of my relatives are medical professionals, they've been warning us, like, please wash your hands everywhere, da 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 da. Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was thinking back in Valentine's Day, and I was eating. I was at a buffet with my childhood friends who are also Asian American first gen, and we're talking about, oh, my friend who wanted to move to Singapore, and she said, oh, I think I need to wait. I remember we were discussing, like, I think we might need to wait like for
Oh,
another
right.
year before we make that
Yeah.
transition. Um, so it's very interesting. That was very much in my family's mind, but it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just wait, how did we get here? Sorry. But oh dang, I missed that buffet. It's fine.
I miss buffets too. I guess, this is a two-part question. Are there any queer pieces of media that are really interesting to you right now? And then are there any resources that come to mind for queer people, but also queer artists and immigrant artists and
Mm.
as a whole?
You know what's really interesting? I'm the worst pop culture queer ever. I think, um, yeah, beforehand I was like, go to the center. I mean, I think now the center has online
Mm-hmm.
stuff happening. Um, I think for me, if it's queer stuff, I've been rereading queer plays. A play that I recently reread was Half Bright Life.
Mm-hmm.
So please read that. One of the few two-hander pieces where it features queer women. Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah. I reread A. Ray Pamatmat's Edith Can Shoot Things, especially the idea of young people and isolation in a different way. This
Mm-hmm.
self-imposed isolation when their parents leave. Um, I've been doing that. I've been just writing my own queer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
we need it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But but I guess, oh yeah, I remember now things that make me happy. This is not necessarily queer, but queer friendly. I am a big fan of comedian Nicole Byer. And
Oh,
so
my heart. I love her so much.
And so I listen to two of Nicole's podcasts, and they make me happy every Wednesday and Friday.
Yeah.
Wednesday is with Shashir Zameda, called Best Friends,
Yes.
and that makes me tee hee hee so much. And then something that has actually helped me as someone in my friend group who is constantly single. I am notoriously single all the time, not of choosing, just because. Which is fun. I laugh at myself for it.
Yeah.
Um, I I mean, going to shows is cheap, just one ticket. But but I listen on Fridays. Why won't you date me?
I listen to that religiously every Friday too.
If you listen from the first episode to the most recent episode, the sense of growth and acknowledgement of one's self-worth is so beautiful.
Yes.
It's been so life affirming, and so that's actually, and also that makes me laugh, especially the earliest episodes when Nicole Byer calls her ex, or like people with whom she's hooked up with, to be on the
Mhm.
show and ask them questions.
And they're really responsive. We'll have to connect them. I have so many thoughts about that
It
when she
makes me
gave me. I
so
love it
happy.
so much.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, and also, what call people, the lost art of calling a person.
yes.
Please call people. That's what I've been doing with my queers. We've just been
Hmm.
literally just like, not even Zoom. We're just calling each other.
Yeah. No, it's
Please do
different
that.
to be on the phone walking outside as opposed to staring at a screen. So I've been
Yeah.
practicing that
I
as
realized throughout this entire thing, I haven't really been looking at the screen. I've been doing this.
well. Okay.
I think I think because it's like my intuition is like, oh, like it's just really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, a final question for you is, we've been asking our artists this during our spotlights on our social media, but why what makes ugh, I'm gonna butcher this now. Why do we need to keep queer theater alive?
Oh my gosh, for many reasons. so when I create theater, and then I used to not tell this to people, and now I just tell it to everyone. I, every time I write or I direct or I do anything in theater, I dramaturg, I make the show as if I'm doing it only for my 10-year-old self,
Mm.
and what that little, that little queer, like that Gaby needed to hear. And so I think at this time, I mean, that's always a thing. There will always be new generations. Um, and so they always need that affirmation of knowing of what we've gone through and what we'll do, to create better places. It writes down our history, especially now. I think this is, I mean, always write down our history. But what the people whom I'm thinking of and my colleagues are right now, especially in this pandemic, are my Black and brown families, my families who are HIV positive, families who are undocumented. I don't know how. It's just hard when I don't hear from people. Yeah. Anyway, that's a different matter. But
Right.
but uh, like a story that I'm not hearing is how they're hit, and they also just happen to be many people to be essential workers. And what does that mean to live and survive, and having to navigate that, especially in worlds in which their bodies alone, yeah, looking out. Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, please just write. Do something that you feel is good for you. But queer theater, I the work that I've seen that's coming out in the histories, and seeing so many different bodies on stage, I cannot wait. Like lesbian, trans artists, non-gender conforming, like the queer future, this utopia. I cannot wait when we're back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's really
Yeah, queer
lovely.
theater. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like keep imagining it. Like,
Yeah.
always reach out for it. Is it Munoz? You can never reach true queerness, because it's always something that you're
Yeah.
searching. Oh no, that is not Munoz. Oh shucks. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
I'll get back. I'm mixing a different definition. It's fine. It's okay.
All right.
Some scholar out there is gonna correct me. Please do. I would like to remember.
Cool.
And if it is, but
yeah. Well, thank you. That was such a lovely place to end this conversation. Thank you so much.
Good. I hope I was coherent.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I always love to talk to you about these things and Nicole Byer and everything. And so I'm glad that we'll be able to present this to our communities. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Of course, thank you. I hope, if people want to reach out to me, you could always email me. Oh, yes, you could use this email. I don't know. Can you use this email? Actually, email National Queer Theater, and then they'll
You can email me, which is at nationalqueertheater.org, and I will forward the email to one of Gaven's emails. But thank you again.
I have many identities.
Yeah,
I'm like Batman, but not rich.
All right. Thank you so much, Gaven.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Have a spectacular day.
You too. All right.